I'll be streaming on YouTube as well as Facebook coming up in 4.5 minutes, people. Should be a pretty fascinating show tonight. Okay, Soldier Earth. And I better line up my news tabs. 4 minutes. If you're watching an archive version, you might want to fast forward a few minutes. Otherwise, let's have a good show. Okay. Copyright free Facebook, copyright free Clegbook. Copyright free Facebook. Yeah. Got a confession to make. I'm running 2 minutes late, people. 2 minutes late. I do apologise. Hey, Matt. How you doing?
All good, mate. Just a quick test.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to start the show in about a minute and a half. If you want to hang about, you can. You can hang about now if you like. And we'll just, Yeah.
I'm going to have a bit of dinner, mate, and I'll see you at 1:30, all right?
All right. God bless you. Big cheers.
Right. See you in a bit.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Somebody's running late. 1 minute, people. 1 minute. Yeah. You know what? Better do something. Right. Hey, folks. Good evening, good people. Welcome to the Daily Brexit. Holding democracy to account, fighting for self-determination, and exposing plutocracy. I'm Olly Connelly. Thanks for turning up. Thank you, Viscount St Davids, for just turning up. Hey, you're in the nick of time, sir. And now, Soldier F. Why is the British government, this and previous, providing amnesty for convicted terrorists, yet charging our armed soldiers with murder? Veterans Matt Hellyer and Dan McDevitt detail yet another betrayal on the British people. And this time on those who keep us safe. And what about the Tilbrook case? Our Rodders Viscount St Davids is here with an update. Taking your calls, UK national number at the top of the spiel. And we'll see you in the comments. Please help the show, paypal.me/Brexit. Thank you. Please share the thing, like the page, all that. Let folks know we're talking, we're thinking, we're watching, we are active. Aye. Blimey. Rodri, good evening, sir. How are you? Viscount St Davids.
Well, go on.
Hello, sir. How are you? Can you hear me?
It's been, can you hear me?
Yeah, I certainly can. Yep.
Perfect.
Loud and clear.
It's been quite a long day. And funny enough, I've just left a veterans group
Right.
who are rather keen on tonight's show.
Good. Excellent. The more the merrier. Please share the show, folks. This is very, very important. It's not getting covered properly in the media, of course, as per. Talking of which, let's have a quick look and see what they're spinning today. Starting with Breitbart's top story. Blair Now, most likely that Britain will have second referendum and stay in the European Union, says the war criminal on high. Arch-Remainer Tony Blair has leapt on the decisive victory of the Brexit Party in Sunday's European Union election count as a clear sign that the United Kingdom needs a second referendum and to vote to cancel Brexit, keeping the country in the EU. Speaking in an in-studio with Sky News' Adam Bolton, the Iraq war architect, new Labour leader and UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, former that is, reacted to the Brexit Party's sudden surge from being founded as a new force to coming first in a national election in just 45 days by dismissing the concerns of their voters, claiming that a desire for Brexit itself is based on a myth. Let's have a listen to hear what he had to say.
Do you think the UK is ever going to leave the European Union or not?
I think, but you've got to aim off for the position I hold. I think it is more likely now that we will have another referendum, and more likely that therefore we will vote to stay in the European Union. But I think we live in an era of unique unpredictability, and there are so many different variable factors before we reach that point. But I think the only way you're ever going to bring this country back together is through a reasonable process for deciding whether we really want to leave Europe or we want to stay. And then hopefully the emergence of a political coalition and a government that address the true challenges of the country, of which, by the way, as I constantly say, the forthcoming technological revolution is the single biggest challenge we face, and no political party in this country is yet even addressing it.
I think that's the wrong answer, no. Followed by, I'll tell you what, I mean, can you believe this guy? I just find it unbelievable. I find it incredible, Rodri, that this bloke is wheeled out with the regularity that fake stream. Well, I mean, obviously, we know what they are. Personally, I think the guy's a war criminal. He should be lying in a dungeon at the bottom of The Hague, if not worse. He's the guy that changed the treason laws, isn't he? So that it couldn't be worse, at least in the UK. What are your thoughts?
He sounds as though, in the first instance, he's got throat cancer. If that was Tony Blair that you just played.
Yes, it was. Yes, I'm afraid so.
Well, what's rather interesting, and this will be a first, I'm not going to put myself in the same camp as Julian Assange, but you may recall when Margaret Thatcher wrote her memoirs, there was a little bit of Humpty Dumpty with the Foreign Office and the Home Office over the editing of her memoirs.
Right. Sorry. Whose memoirs?
Margaret Thatcher's.
Right. Okay. Go on. Yeah.
And the specific chapter in question harks back to the Falkland Islands, and subsequently or consequently her hatred of the EU. And I have it on very good authority. You can probably guess his name, but he was the Minister for the Armed Forces at the time of the conflict of the Falklands. And if you recall, a number of Her Majesty's ships, naval vessels, were being hit by Exocet missiles that had been exported to Argentina.
Yes.
The way an Exocet missile works is it has a particular frequency. So as it approaches the target, it then drops from, I think, 30 feet down to something like 15 feet as it locks onto the target. If you are in command of those frequencies, you can actually counteract by sending a rebuffing frequency. By all accounts, we approached the French, who are the manufacturers of the Exocet missile, and asked for the code book of frequencies of those missiles that had been delivered to Argentina. And quite correctly, in a certain way, they said, no, we can't possibly do that. However, behind the scenes, backstreet deal, we will give you those frequencies. those frequencies turned out to be completely fraudulent, which is why our ships were unprotected. HMS Sheffield, I think Antelope was another one.
Belfast, no?
I'm sorry?
Not Belfast. Which?
No, Belfast is securely
No, that's on the
stationed.
Thames. I'm thinking of the Belgrano, which was the other way around. The gotcha. Yeah,
No.
carry on, please.
Anyway, so what transpired is the French stabbed us in the back by giving us fraudulent codes. Sorry, this is my mobile going off, and I hope... No, okay. By giving us fraudulent codes, and our ships would not have been in those vulnerable positions if we had known the position. In the sense, France has given us the codes, and they were the wrong codes. Mm-hmm. There are other techniques for protecting ships that would have been deployed if it wasn't for the French. It was a marketing exercise for their weapons, namely the Exocet missile, that was put on the Royal Navy. And when Margaret Thatcher, in her memoirs, wished to describe these events, they were blocked by the Home Office, the Foreign Office, you name it. The Minister for the Armed Forces in question, a good family friend, described this to me when I was a mere lad. I thought, my God, what sort of partners are these people? We're in a state of war. We're losing British lives, British ships, and all this is a marketing exercise for the exportation of Exocets. Yeah. And if you remember the shipment of Exocets via Brazil, when, what was he called? Haig, who was the foreign secretary in the US, who implored Margaret Thatcher not to engage in warfare with Argentina. She held firm, and Haig was told to step back. Now, this is a chapter that should be revealed in European history. Hopefully, it's past the 30-year mark. Well, it is. And this should be in the public domain. France, our great partner in the EU, basically created Simon Weston, a great hero, a Welsh guardsman whose life has been affected in great part by contradiction of weapon sales via France.
Yes.
I mean, it's horrendous.
It is. It is, absolutely. It is.
And this has to come out, and this hopefully is an exclusive, Olly, for you, and should be followed up by any willing journalist to follow the course of historical events.
Thank you, sir. Yes, indeed. The duplicity is incredible. Tony Blair pleads for EU referendum rerun so people can reach the right conclusion, Breitbart is saying. And meanwhile, his erstwhile colleague and fellow war criminal Alastair Campbell has been expelled from the Labour Party just today after backing the Lib Dems at the European elections. Well, I mean, it's truth. Now, that is the definition of depression, no? So, yeah, he's been kicked out. Alastair Campbell expelled from Labour after backing Lib Dems. And meanwhile, Equality's watchdog launches formal Labour anti-Semitism probe, which I don't know about you, but to me just sounds like a distraction because they want to get rid of Benite Corbyn, who, of course, is a Eurosceptic. This is according to Telegraph, these headlines here, although not this editorial line. Jeremy Hunt, meanwhile, vows to renegotiate a Brexit deal with the EU. And if anybody heard him on Radio 4 this morning, I don't know what your thoughts are, Rodri, but I thought that he sounded to me distinctly Remeronic on Radio 4 this morning. This guy, Jeremy Hunt, sounds every bit as duplicitous as Theresa May to me. The idea of having him in number 10 fills me with horror.
Well, I think the fact that he's revealed himself is honourable, and he makes himself completely unelectable and unappealable to the British electorate. thank you, Mr. Hunt, for giving us your views at such an early stage in proceedings.
Yeah, that is a good way of looking at it. Sure. Kit Malthouse, the Malthouse proposal, fame and all that, launches a Tory leadership bid as well. The BBC is to run leadership debates in June. Nigel Farage says, prepare for a revolution in British politics, and so on and so forth. But the big story there today, really, I suppose, is that Jeremy Corbyn has expelled Tony Blair's former spin doctor, Alistair Campbell, from the Labour Party after he voted for the Liberal Democrats at the European elections. I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? We are about to see, I would have thought, we've seen some defections, of course, people going to the chuck-up party from both sides of the house. I would have thought we're going to see a lot more of that now over the course of between now and the next general election, potentially 3 years away, but it's hard to see that it can be that long, no? What are your thoughts, Rodri?
Well, Ollie, what I'm finding rather hysterical is the inability to discourse and debate amongst the core political parties. There are certain red lines, and who defines these red lines? God knows who. But the reality is, frankly, God bless Alistair Campbell, who I'm no great fan of. Let me tell you right now.
Yeah.
For making his voice heard by stating he voted for Lib Dems. And all of a sudden, no, we can't talk about that. That's off limits. It's like, how do you teach sex education to a child? No, we can't talk about that. That's off limits. It's like, Dad, some bloke has just asked me out for a drink. How shall I behave? Oh, we can't talk about that. That's off limits. I mean, probably the wrong analogy, but nonetheless, I thought politics and the Palace of Westminster was a debating chamber where you could debate everything and anything.
Yes.
And as soon as you shut down the modus of communication, all of a sudden you turn into some kind of enclosed space, which is not democratic. It's not representative of people's views, because the moment you have a view outside of the box, and it comes back to Animal Farm, George Orwell, you disagree with us, out, and we're going to publicly out you, and you're going to be punished. That is no way for our society to live.
Do you think that this anti-Semitism row, on the other hand, is as genuine as is being purported, or do you think it's being used as another way to prize Jeremy Corbyn and the Bennites, the true Labour people, whatever you think of them, whether you agree with their maths or not, away from the leadership to allow the Blairites to basically continue their infiltration of that movement?
Look, I think it's a sideshow. At the end of the day, you look at the Labour front bench, and they are spitting image minus the puppets. They're hugely entertaining. I do have a comical regard for Jeremy Corbyn, but the reality is this anti-Semitism nonsense is a weapon that's being used for his destruction. I think it's an absolute bloody sideshow. He panders to all sorts. You look at George Galloway, who I also have a sneaky regard for. Funny enough,
I do.
In a comedic way.
Yes.
He's provided hours of entertainment. There it is.
Without realizing it.
Do you know what? Which is even better. That is the ultimate comedy. The art and essence of. What I find so distressing is we look at our major political parties, and in actual fact, how feeble they are. What Farage has produced within a 3-month period is nothing less than astonishing. He is taking over the country with grassroots, with folks from both sides of the pavement, Labour and Conservative, because he is seemingly, and I would like to believe, honest. And that's what is required for the British people. What's happened to us under Theresa May is nothing short of dishonest. There have been some very kind words said about Theresa May while she blubbed up outside Number 10.
Yeah.
You know, I know which way my heart feels, but, you know, trying to interpret the comments, well, she didn't cry over Grenfell. She didn't cry over a number of tragedies.
Yeah, Manchester.
Her expulsion from Number 10, lo and behold, brings her ambition to an end. That's the point at which she becomes emotional.
Yes.
How many messages has she received? Show, you know, leadership to your country.
Absolutely.
One of the guests you're about to have on, Matt Hellyer, is a natural leader. And I'll leave it to him to describe himself from the armed forces.
Well, thank you, sir, for helping me, for booking Matt today for this show. I very much appreciate it. It's going to be fascinating to hear from him. And Dan McDevitt is coming in as well. Now, Dan, I've got a message from you, but it's a little bit late for me to go through all my messages now. The show is going out live. The number... If you're having a problem connecting with me on Skype, the number is at the top of the show, which is a Skype number, actually, but you can call it from any landline, any phone, or what have you, to call in and join us at the bottom of the hour. But either way, this is going to be a fascinating conversation in a few minutes' time. It's not just the Labour Party, Rodri, that is being attacked. This kind of divide rule, this auto ab KO type mechanism that these dark forces, shadow government, whatever, seem to put in place. It's also the Tories that are getting some of it now as well, being accused of Islamophobia. So the Labour Party apparently is fundamentally anti-Semitic, and the Tory lot are Islamophobic. And there's another great big thing going on there. I just wonder if that, by any chance, has something to do with the fact that Boris Johnson is the leading contender, the no-deal Brexit man, the WTO deal Brexit man, with ancillary deals to keep the planes in the air and keep the trains running and all that. There's no such thing as a no-deal Brexit. There's no such thing as crashing out with the WTO cushion. But anyway, I do wonder if Boris Johnson, who advocates or says that he advocates the principle, at least, of us being able to leave on WTO terms, is the reason that this Islamophobia thing is being chucked up in the air again. A way to target him, because he personally has been criticized over his pillar box remark or something. I mean, I thought it was very funny, personally. You know what? I was brought up on Peter Cook. I don't know. I mean, does it not just stink on both sides of hidden forces like Tony Blair trying to derail democracy? And can it actually work ultimately?
Well, Olly, you bring up a number of subjects.
Yes.
Most of which I can't remember, but they all struck a chord. The last one is Tony Blair is the absolute fascist. You know, he's bent idiot voters, frankly, into his form of worldview. He's changed our culture in Britain forever. Well, I say forever. Hopefully, we can turn it back. But ostensibly, right now, fundamental values that we're going to talk about later on in the show,
yes,
have been perverted, and I do call Tony Blair a pervert. He's changed national institutions in the name of modernization, which is beyond his call of duty.
Miranda.
Now, sorry?
Miranda Blair. Now, come on. Okay, all right. We'll talk about that in another show, but I know there's all sorts of interesting stuff there. Him covering up Operation Or with the D-notices and stuff like that, which apparently had...
you talk about D-notices.
Cabinet members on that list of paedophiles? I don't know. All very, very interesting.
Well, Olly,
not something that you get any questions about in the mainstream media. Please.
Olly, given the theme of tonight's show, let's go back to core British values. Yes. Which is where we've departed with a succession of interesting governments that have different views on what constitute or should constitute core British values. Matt Hellyer, 22 Special Air Service, is representative of core British values. What are our core British values? It seems that a number of governments, in particular, Tony Blair, has tried to change core British values to something which is, I don't know.
Absolutely. With political correct rhetoric, ideology, dogma, and common purpose, huh? Absolutely.
As opposed to a young man who, his alpha male gets the better of him, and he decides to join the parachute regiment, for example. And he does the training, he does the physical fitness, and he prepares himself in the service of Her Majesty. He is called under Her Majesty's regulation, which is the rule book of how you operate in territories where you're engaged. These are core British values, probably something that Tony Blair has never been made aware of. How our soldiers are taught and regulated to operate in times of conflict, in theatres of war and theatres of battle. How do we operate?
Yes.
And we, without question, as a nation, have the most disciplined troops, the most disciplined army, navy, air force on the planet. We are the envy of the world. Yet, we have successive governments who somehow, none of these members of cabinet have ever learnt to polish a boot, with the exception of Rory Stewart. Yet they feel somehow it's okay to prosecute people who've given service in difficult times. Lo and behold, they're retired, and in their old age, they're being pursued by the law courts for things that they were instructed to do. I just simply don't understand it, and it's a sad reflection on the politics of our time and the governments that have brought us here, starting bluntly with John Major, followed by Tony bloody Blair, Gordon Brown, idiot David Cameron, and that moron, Theresa May.
Yes. Absolutely.
So within 20 years, we've seen our national culture somehow disintegrated, and we're in a state of crisis.
Yes. We've got Dan McDevitt joined us as well. 1 second, Dan. If you would please mute your microphone just for a sec, or actually you don't have to because it's quite quiet where you are. But I will bring you in just a second. I just want to very, very quickly cover one or two other stories going on that we need to know about. According to Express, Brexit Live, John Bercow drops no-deal bombshell. Remainer MPs given huge boost. Commons Speaker John Bercow has sparked fury by vowing to block a no-deal Brexit should Prime Minister Theresa May's successor put the scenario of what they're calling no deal on the table. The Speaker of the House of Commons sensationally dismissed top contender for Mrs May's coveted role, Boris Johnson, who said the UK will leave on the 31st of October, deal or no deal. Mr Bercow, an avid Remainer, who said he would retire by now, last year actually, and the only reason he's still in the job is because he's a moron, and that's exactly what they want on both sides of the House. let's just be clear, 408 out of 650 constituencies voted to leave. In GE terms, in general election terms, 62.8% of the country, an absolute landslide. Anyway, Ramoron Burko said the idea of the House won't have its say is for the birds. He added during a speech in the United States, the idea that Parliament is going to be evacuated from the centre stage of debate on Brexit is unimaginable. He agreed Britain leaving without a deal remains the default position, but added there is a difference between a legal default position and what the interplay of different political forces in Parliament will facilitate. His remarks come after Bookie's second favourite for the top spot after Mrs May leaves her role on June the 7th. Dominic Raab said MPs will do nothing to stop him bringing the UK out of the EU without a deal. They keep saying without a deal. Why can't they be honest? Fake stream media, it's not without a deal. It's not crashing out with no deal. It's going out on a WTO deal. I'll tell you what, it makes me so bloody mad. It's unbelievable. Right, okay. We've got Matt Hellyer calling in as well now, or trying to. I'm trying to patch him in here, and for some reason, I don't know. Anyway, we'll keep trying that. Please try again, please, Matt. Mr. Raab said whether the UK has a deal with Brussels by Halloween, the third and final delayed deadline, Britain is coming out regardless. The remarks could trigger Mr. Burko to find a way to get Remainer MPs to stage a vote on an emergency debate, as he has threatened in the past, allowing a law to block a no deal to pass. Now, I'm just trying, whilst I read that story, to connect Matt in here, and that is not, I don't know if that's working. Matt, can you hear me, sir? Matt Hellyer. No, I'll tell you what, hold on a sec, because I want to get this right, obviously. So let me see if I can pull him in a different way, because he's, there we go. Let me see if I can do this. Just bear with me, people. If I call him, it might be better than him calling me for some reason, technical wise. Bit of daily chaos for you. Right, okay, I think we've got Matt as well. Right, Matt and Dan McDevitt, and we've got Viscount St Davids here as well. Right, okay, so that's the deal with the news. Basically, we can see that they are completely dismissing or trying to dismiss the utter obliteration or near obliteration of both mainstream parties actually at the EU elections. Incredible. Just as an aside, just to give you an idea of what's going on the continent, European elections fallout live. Radka issues EU summit warning. Get the message. Sounds familiar, no? Leo Varadkar has sent a stern warning to the government and the UK electorate to get that message after the people of Northern Ireland elected 2 out of 3 MEPs who support remaining in the EU and the controversial backstop. Okay, so his message is the same as Tony Blair's. I don't know whether he was watching the same show as me the other night with these election results pouring in. But anyway, right, enough of that. Let's get into tonight's topic proper. And thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for coming on the show tonight, the three of you. Soldier F has been concerning a great deal of people, and yet it seems to me that considering how remarkable is this story, it's not getting anything like the media attention it should. Perhaps before we go into that, if you could just give us a bit of an idea of your experience. Dan McDevitt, sir, you're a vet yourself. And you have served, and what is your particular? I take it that you're too young to have served in Northern Ireland. I think that Matt did.
No, not at all. I did over 3 years in Northern Ireland.
Right.
I was actually there for the Omagh bomb, where the 29 people were blown up by their own people. Obviously, that cordon was meant for ourselves. They got the timings wrong. And we pushed the civilians into the cordon area where they took out the civilians rather than the military cordon that should have been put in place.
Okay.
So I have a good working knowledge of Northern Ireland. We'll just say that.
Thank you, sir. And Matt, 2-2 Special Air Service, Squadron Sergeant Major, over 300 operations. I'm very, very grateful for you coming on as well, sir. And you did serve in Northern Ireland, I understand.
Yeah, I served 4 tours in Northern Ireland through the 80s and all the way up until in 2003. A couple of emergency tours and 2 residential tours, and witnessed a number of incidents where we see our soldiers directly under me, killed, wounded, maimed, and mentally injured, So, we have an extensive knowledge of Northern Ireland, probably through the latter years of Operation Banner, but nevertheless, a predominant time.
We're gonna again, tonight is an extended show, and I know there's a lot of veterans that are watching this that tend to watch this show actually, and that have been very, very keen to see some coverage on this story. And now we've got those EU elections out of the way, it is very much the case that the show wants to be covering what's going on. Perhaps, please, if you would start, Matt, explaining the background of this Soldier F issue. It dates back to Bloody Sunday, I understand. Please treat me as a complete Labrador puppy and give us a bit of an idea of where this comes from before we look at the political chicanery that has subsequently...
The history behind Northern Ireland was that the British Army was sent in there to keep the peace. It took fire from both sides, Protestant and Catholic, and really did not discriminate against any religion. It rose to an all-time high. The British military deaths in 1972 has surpassed any of that we've ever seen in Iraq or Afghanistan. I think it was around 170 people that was killed in 1972. That was soldiers and police. A horrendous amount of casualties. That's dead, not injured. The injured was outrageous. Soldier F was a young soldier. At the time he's now 70. In his early 70s, he was a young soldier sent there under strict rules of engagement, which were absolutely drummed into us. We had a yellow card now top left pocket at all times, and if any point that we felt that we were under any duress or we weren't quite sure what to do, that card was always there. We had officers commanding us, and they were experienced war fighters as well. So under no time were you looking at inexperienced soldiers that didn't know what they were doing on the streets of Northern Ireland. We were told at that time, and so was Soldier F, that you are only shoot in the last ditch effort. If you felt that your life or the danger of or the life of your friends or civilians around you were in danger, then you was to take that necessary action, and it was your last ditch action, trust me. And Soldier F was put in a position where I'm sure that he had no choice, and he must have felt scared, lost, lonely when he took those shots. This is an incident that has been looked at now on 2, maybe 3 reports. It was
4 occasions now.
Pardon, sorry.
4 occasions now.
Matt, 4 occasions now. We've had Lord Widgery look at it and clear it in 72. We've had the Sauer inquiry now, which was an absolute, tragedy and cost £400 million of the taxpayers' money, and they absolutely cherry-picked the evidence. And Soldier F is now the scapegoat to this Tony Blair, an absolute...
we're going to come on to that. We are going to come on to that, Matt. Sorry, can you tell me again, please, the name of that inquiry?
Lord Widgery was the first inquiry, and that was done 11 weeks after 1972, after the incident itself on the 30th of January.
Right.
That was there, and it cleared the soldiers, and it looked at all of the incidents and all of the people that were unfortunately killed. These were, as far as we the soldiers were under the impression these were, terrorists. They were young men trying to kill them,
Yes.
young men that were in a different situation, and
Yes.
and soldiers and probably as scared as our soldiers,
Yes.
But
And the second inquiry was called the
Savile inquiry, which was initially started in 1998 by a Blair government, and we had the report filed in 2010.
Right. Okay. We'll come on to those in a bit more detail. Dan, could you please offer us, before we get into some of the other detail of what's happened subsequently, your experiences of how it was to be on the ground serving in Northern Ireland, and how that would compare with other theatres?
Well, just to reiterate what Matt said there, everything that he said there, I agree with 100 million %. Just a little bit that I would like to add to it. Most JDA patrols and rural patrols were also attended by an RUC representative, which was
Royal
a very
Ulster
knowledgeable
Constabulary.
police officer.
I'm sorry. Yep.
From the area of local knowledge. And they also had there as well either a spotter or a chatter, which was from either battalion
What's that?
level.
What's that? Sorry, please.
Basically, that's an individual that's sat a course for a period of time on terrorist recognition and suspect recognition. So most patrols had one of them, as well as an experienced RUC officer. Now, with the experience on the ground, when I first went out there, I was 18-year-old. Sorry, I lie, I was 19. And
You were a
it's
kid.
quite daunting.
Yeah, I'll bet.
I mean, you're walking round basically a general population of people that look like yourself, that act like yourself, and they just have a little bit of a different accent. So without the experience of the assets that you've got around you with the RUC, the spotters, the intelligence that you get, it's hard to say who's who. And obviously with that many sympathisers that are involved in the cause, whether it be from either side, then the numbers are just massive. And what a lot of people don't realise is this is one of the largest and most professional, well, not professional, organised organisations in the world. I mean, they've had sleepers that
You're talking about the provisional IRA.
I'm talking about the IRA.
Yeah.
They'll have had sleepers in place, not just in their own province, but in mainland UK, that could have been your neighbour and you'd have not known about it, because they are 100% dedicated to the cause.
Okay, so with that background, to put in context a little bit the events of Bloody Sunday, what actually happened? Please, Dan, what happened?
Basically, what happened on Bloody Sunday, Matt will be able to correct me if I'm wrong here. He seems very knowledgeable in the actual event itself. But there was a large gathering of protesters from the Catholic side, the Republican side, i.e. the IRA. The parachute regiment was out there to respond. They kept everything peaceful and everything. And this may not be in any inquiry. But then there was open fire on from a block of flats by 3 individuals. Yeah.
Sniper fire, effectively.
With 7.62 automatic rifles.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One of the individuals was Martin McGuinness. The second individual, he's passed away, but there is a third individual that's still alive, and I'm not going to reveal his name or anything like that. That's up for governments to sort out. But they actually opened fire on our troops first. Now, you put yourself in their shoes. Obviously, Ollie, I presume you've never been shot at.
No.
But you're a young lad, 18, 24. You've got experienced section commanders or patrol commanders that were platoon sergeants or officers around you. They'll have experienced war and been under fire before. But then you come under fire basically by people that are your own nationality. It can be quite daunting. I remember the first ever time I was shot at thinking, shit, I just want my mum. And then your adrenaline kicks in, you're guided, and you take over. And as Matt said there, and he's 100,000,000% right, the rules of engagement, the yellow card was drilled into us. So if a car was being driven at you and you clearly identified a weapon, you could open fire. But as soon as that car passed you, it was no longer a threat to life, so you couldn't open fire. And that was drilled into us. And for what's gone on now, perhaps I'm going off a little too far ahead here, but with regards to Dennis Hutchins, it's no longer about Soldier F for me. It's about Soldier A to Z. That's what we're calling it. Because with regards to Dennis Hutchins, as Matt said there prior, and the investigations that was put towards him, he actually got acquitted of. Yeah, I actually know Dennis Hutchins personally, and I've had him speak at some of my rallies. And he's actually been investigated 4 times and been acquitted 4 times. And how this is actually happening to work, now don't quote me on this, I can't actually remember the name at the moment, but it was a law that was dropped by government in the 80s. And basically what that allowed was, rather than an individual to be sued, the department he worked for could be sued, and it also implemented double jeopardy. So therefore, when they went on out one aspect and it was acquitted, and they found something else, another loophole, they could go for that aspect and persist on trying to get that conviction there. And they've done it 4 times now. We'll
come on to that. We will come on to that. Is Soldier F Dennis Hutchins then, without saying things that shouldn't be said, or without saying things that would in any way hurt anybody involved here, such as Soldier F? Who is Dennis Hutchins? Please excuse my ignorance. Matt, go on.
Sorry, I'm not. We're not here to reveal names. We're talking about Soldier F, the situation.
Yes. No, quite right. Okay. I apologise for that.
Justifiable to take this man and send him off to prison at a ripe old age of, in his early 70s now.
Yes. No, absolutely, quite right. Right. So what would
Sorry,
what did?
I'd like to interject.
Go on, Roger.
There are a couple of cases which Matt is aware, where you got 2 legal boundaries. If you serve in Her Majesty's Armed Forces, you've got the boundary which is within the wire, and then you've got the civilian boundary which is outside the wire. And there are a couple of cases where the 2 intermingle, where the courts can be forgiven to a certain extent for commingling civilian criminal law with the law that applies to those who serve Her Majesty. A typical case is Liam Culverhouse, of whom we can't speak too much about, but it would look as though the civilian courts did not look beyond his civilian file to recognise that in actual fact he's innocent and due a retrial. But moving swiftly forward, if we look at the veterans, which is I think the object of this programme, these are men who've served their country. They have been trained to the best standard. And let's face it, Her Majesty's Armed Forces are the absolute envy of the world. The Special Air Service, in particular, no one can hold a candle to. When it comes to discipline, training, observation of the rules, why is it that now we find post-Tony Blair, David Cameron, and Theresa May, that these men are being prosecuted in a civilian way? It's absolute nonsense. And that goes beyond the homeless veterans who don't ask for help.
I just want people to be absolutely clear before we get into that. Let's Matt is absolutely correct. Let's keep names out of this because there will be some interesting characters watching this show tonight for a start. I just want people to be absolutely clear who are new to this subject, largely including me, by the way, quite frankly, of what was on the ground there that these kids were facing. Matt, if you would care to expand, please, on what Dan was explaining about the events of Bloody Sunday itself, and what did Soldier F, if anything, do wrong?
Well, he didn't do anything wrong. He was doing what he thought was correct. In a military scenario, you are taught to save life. Mm-hmm. You are there to save life, and they were put into a situation where it was a human rights march in 1972, and they were there as a bolster when things started going wrong, and terrorists were identified by other regiments. I think the Royal Green Jackets, and there was a number of other regiments in and around that march that evening, and one para were asked to go forward and to break what turned into be riots. And I'm 100% sure that it was nothing to do with the human rights march that was going on that evening. The terrorists at the time used the human rights march as good cover to make an attack on not only the British Army but also the civilians of Ulster or Northern Ireland, and also the police. So one para was pushed into a situation, a time-sensitive situation. They didn't really have much time to gather their thoughts, send out their quick battle orders. They were pushed into a situation and they had to react. And like Dan has said, when you are in that situation, you are scared. You are Northern Ireland. You're on the streets. You're in an urban environment. There's it's a 360 battlefield. You're not just looking. There isn't a front line. The front line is everywhere, all around you. You'll get bombs going off in cars, through windows. You're getting shot at from numerous different angles. You're looking at a civilian. You don't know whether the civilian's a terrorist or is innocent. All of a sudden, you're seeing rounds come at you. You've got to identify where the terrorist is. You're there to save life. There is, you can imagine the chaos that goes on in that sort of situation. And we are judging Soldier F in a situation where we would say, well, in a civilian calm situation, you cannot understand the stress, the chaos, the environment that soldier is looking at in front of him. He's got to think quick on his feet. He's got to think about his rules of engagement. He's got to listen to his commanders, and he's got to react.
And this was one soldier that is being prosecuted over the events of Bloody Sunday, or?
Of course, is that not just a scapegoat? Have we seen any terrorists on the evening prosecuted? Of course we haven't. We go for the easy option. When you're a terrorist and you're in your own estate, I grew up in a council estate in South London, and I knew every inch of that estate. We knew where the cubby holes were. We were up to no good on that estate. So when you if you come from the north of England and you're thrown into a South London council estate, you're going to be scared. You haven't got a clue what's going on. And that's what the soldiers were like. That is what Soldier F had to experience. He was not on his ground. He did not have the advantage. The advantage was all sat in the terrorist lap. Not one of those terrorists have been prosecuted. All of these terrorists have received letters of amnesty. They've all been let out of prison. There's so on, so forth. The list becomes endless. And what we're trying to say, we're not trying to say, let's not try to get the terrorists back in prison. What we're trying to say is it should be a level playing field now. We've given an amnesty. We've had a Good Friday agreement. We're trying to push for peace. The peace is being upset now in Londonderry again through the real IRA and their recent bomb and their recent attacks. What we're trying to do is impose peace. And where we impose peace, it should be an amnesty above board on a level playing field. These soldiers were in a situation they didn't realise. We can't hold their actions. It is wrong for us to judge their actions, 30, 40 years ago now. They can't remember what was going on. I can't remember what was going on 2-3 years ago. They're being asked to remember 40 years ago and go back and, piece together what went on, and they're being prosecuted on this evidence. This evidence is weak and it should not be upheld.
Totally agree. I agree 100 million% with what Matt's just said there. And how he puts it across is superb. And I'm sorry to butt in there.
No, please do, Dan. Carry on.
With what Matt's just said there is everything we're doing for Soldier F now, and the other prosecutions under the HIU is basically...
What's that?
And Matt's hit it on the head. They've had an amnesty. They were released on the Good Friday Agreement. So why come after us now? Because it should have been, and it would have been, and it did get dealt with then. Yeah? And everything was proven to be done correctly. And then when people come back after 43 years and say, this happened, well, I'm sorry, I've been in some pretty hairy situations, and I cannot remember that detail to the actual second. And anybody that says they can, in my personal opinion, I can't speak for everyone, but they're full of it. Yeah, they are full of it. And to have an inquiry now that's been acquitted so many times, it's just a money spinner. It's big business making a money spinner. And the government are being spineless and allowing it to happen. And we're not prepared for that to happen. But on that point, we're not after recreating the troubles. What we're saying is, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Well, you can give an amnesty. We want the amnesty. Rather than prosecuting elderly individuals that should be relaxing, enjoying the last years in life, and not having to be dragged out of their bed at 7 o'clock in the morning by police, not being dragged over the coals with all that stress and strain. And I do apologise for mentioning a said name before, but he's come out fighting. He's come out saying his piece from what he can remember, and he's willing to step up to the plate and let people know, general public, and what really went on. And he's not scared no more because he's terminally ill. Why should a man be being dragged over the coals that is terminally ill, yeah, that should be caring and putting himself first, having to fight this disgrace that the government is allowing to happen? I'm sorry, but it's totally wrong. It is totally wrong in so many aspects.
Dan, that's what we're here to kill. I fundamentally disagree with Matt, funnily enough, on the basis he's been overly diplomatic in respect of the difference between the British Armed Forces and the Provisional IRA. Here we have soldiers, professionally trained, under Her Majesty's command versus a terrorist organisation. And I apologise, Matt, that's kind of how I view it. They were not a legitimate army. You were dealing with scruffians who were terrorists. This was not a legitimate war. The troubles in Northern Ireland will never be described in history 100 years from now as a war. You were dealing with urban warfare.
Yes. Is that not the most difficult type of warfare? Is that not the most difficult type of warfare? Because, as you guys have said, it's you don't know where the next shot's coming from.
Well, Matt is the expert to, I'm sure Dan is.
CQB, yeah, or Matt may call it something else, CQC. CQB, close quarter battle in built-up areas, in urban areas, is the worst thing going, because around every corner, you never know whether that potential threat's going to be there, and that could be 2 foot away, 4 foot away, 100 foot away. You just constantly have to have your wits about you, and you've got to gel and work as a team. You've just got to. And the government send us in there to do a job. Yes. We do it to the utmost professionalism. We're highly trained individuals. Yeah. Let the government deal with this. They're the ones that should be being dragged over the coal and answered the questions, not the people that were sent there to work for Queen and Country.
I just want to understand why one person is being singled out here. Were his actions particularly singular? I get that.
Can I just interrupt again there? I really am. Honestly, I get going and going. He's not one person that's being singled out. That's one event. Under the HRU, the Historical Investigations Unit, there are actually 29 individuals that have been served letters and that are being investigated. Now, I can appreciate Matt's situation due to he's been part of the best regiment on the face of this planet and have a lot of friends in it. And I can appreciate, he's a little bit perhaps hands-tied. I've worked in Northern Ireland. I've had that time before, and I know what goes on, and we're getting that information. It's 29 individuals, and there's more to come.
And these 29 individuals, what events do these prosecutions relate to? Are they prosecutions at this stage on all 29, Dan?
Not at this stage, no. Some of them are investigations. And so some of them are investigations towards events, whether it be a protest. And, I keep saying this, I'm not blowing smoke up his arse or anything, but he hit the nail on the head. It was a cover-up, how they use it. You've got to remember, this warfare is totally different. When you're fighting that type of terrorist that's prepared to give their life, it's totally different to a war zone. It's totally different. Yeah.
But it is a war
so
zone.
There's a lot of investigations from other areas that are happening, and basically it needs to stop.
Go on, Matt.
Without recreating the troubles.
Dan, we've had this before, Ollie, where we had the Iraq inquiry, and we've actually prosecuted, and I think we got rid of the solicitors because of the cover-up that was going on with the law firm, trying to bring scapegoats about the Iraq war inquiry and stuff like that. This is what's going to happen. We have spent already over £400 million on the Savile inquiry itself cost £400 million. That is 16 Apache helicopters. That is, we are funding how many operations on the NHS? What we're doing is lining the pockets of the lawyers and solicitors that think it's a really good thing to drag 100%. This report out for 10, 12 years and issue a weak and a weak report that is only going to fail in the long run. We have so much, and Dan and all the rest of the guys and Soldier F, all of us have got so much momentum that this can only go one way. This is, the people now are starting to speak. All the veterans, every single veteran now is united against what has been going on against Soldier F. We don't want this to carry on. We got rid of it when the Iraq war inquiry was going on. We shamed the lawyers that were involved there, and this is exactly what is.
Yeah, but veterans still suffered, Matt.
What is the?
With regards, sorry to go again.
Go on, Dan. No, go on.
The Iraqi inquiry, 2003. That was my battalion. I know the individual that was prosecuted. Yeah, and it was another cover-up. Shit rolls downhill. Yeah, and it stinks. Right? What they don't tell you.
British soldiers are easy targets when it comes to legalities. Because we act under orders, and then what we're trying to prosecute them is for. You made that decision under your own mind. Well, as a soldier, we are told to do things. I do understand that we are individuals and that we can follow our own actions. But overall, you're a young soldier, so same as Soldier F in 1972. He was under orders. He thought he was doing the right thing. The person that should be bloody prosecuted is the officer that stood in court and absolutely rinsed him, on that last inquiry, And that was shameful of that officer. That man is paid to command, and he should take. Commanding officers and generals really need to step up to the mark. and answer for their pay grade.
What?
It is not down to a young private soldier or a lance corporal to answer for the British Army. It is up for the general, up for the commanding officer that's in charge of that battalion. It is a unit. It is not an individual. Rodri, and I think I'm going down the wrong route. We should not, in this instance, where we're giving amnesties out, there should be a bloody amnesty, and it should be above, on the level playing field.
Yes.
We shouldn't be answering for anything.
Yes.
We are in a situation where it is a terrorist conflict. We're a 360-degree battlefield. And if there's an amnesty, then it needs to be fair. We can't just give it to one side, and this will come out as the inquiry goes on.
Matt,
sorry, Rodri, go on.
Sorry, Ollie.
No, carry on.
Matt, what can we do as the public, in actual fact, to affect what is the correct solution? And the correct solution is the notion of an amnesty on our own armed forces is a bloody nonsense. It's a political
It's a joke.
But of course it's a joke.
What is the political motivation?
You guys have fought terrorists. It's part of the job description written on the bloody can. You were employed by Her Majesty's government, serving under Her Majesty with Queen's regulations. It's on the fucking tin. The reality is, what can we do effectively to secure the possession of veterans to make sure that none of this nonsense ever happens again? What do you require from us?
They can show their support by their vote. And I think we've already done that, through looking at the Brexit Party, showing a vote of how the British public voted in the first time and how we're voting again. Mrs. May, and I'm sure it's part of her downfall, amongst other things, her, incapable ability to negotiate. One of her downfalls is to turn her back on Her Majesty's forces, and that lost her the vote of every single veteran.
Can I just add something there, Matt? Can I just add something?
Yeah,
for you all. What can the veterans do? Like Matt said, all the veterans have come together. He's not just saying that, right? I will back that up. Fact, right? Because we have united 100 veteran groups. I don't know whether any of you saw the 18th. This is where I need it. It'll all come off my head. I've not got a pen and paper in front of me or anything like that.
Yep.
The reason why we did the 18th, there's been many demos throughout the country.
What was the 18th? What was the 18th, Dan? The 18th. Please tell us what the 18th was. The 18th was in London,
the 18th.
Dan,
what we did on the 18th, was all the veterans come together and we organised to hit 8 cities. We did Belfast, Glasgow, Manchester, Durham, Birmingham, Cardiff, and London and Bristol. On the streets, we put everyone and we went to the BBC, because this is a bit one-sided. But we called that a show of strength to prove to the government that we're still professionals, because veterans come from every walk of life. We're not all in our 70s. Some of us got MD'd. Some of us have gone on to the private sector on the circuit, CP work and stuff like that. But we came together as a show of strength. Basically show the government that we are professionals, it can be done peacefully, and we need to be listened to. And it was listened to.
Right,
Sorry,
Dan, in answer to your question, what we need to do, any member of Parliament, be it the House of Commons or the House of Lords, has the ability to introduce a bill. I will never forget, and you'll recall, Matt, when you asked me what was the meaning of the military covenant that passed into law. And after much chasing around, I had the horrible honour of telling you that actually the military covenant stood for nothing. All it meant... Hang on, Dan, back, please. All it meant is that servicemen would not be disadvantaged or prejudiced as a consequence of their service. And I think, Matt, you'll recall the conversations we had when, in actual fact, the view was the military covenant which sounds a bit like the Holy Grail. It's a covenant. In actual fact, would advantage and should advantage men who've given service to their country. And I'll never forget the look of disappointment in your face when I come away speaking, if you remember, with Lady Robertson, whose husband, Lord Robertson, was G Squadron 22 Special Air Service. It was horrendous. This was a couple of years ago. The reality is, if you want to make a difference, we need to, I use the word loosely, nobble. In fact, not quite so loosely. We need to nobble a peer or an MP to introduce a private member's bill that actually sets out the legality of the position of veterans. And this is before we get to the position which Matt champions, which of course is aftercare service for veterans who suffer from PTSD, homelessness, you name it. Matt is the champion behind the scenes for these men.
Actually,
but sorry.
Rodri, I was just going to say, as an aside, we've discussed the idea of lobby for democracy on this show, you and I. Maybe a similar idea, lobby for veterans.
I completely agree. Fun enough, I was invited very graciously.
Just very briefly, what that entails is going into the lobby in SW1 in the Palace of Westminster, where the MPs and the Lords, whatever, they have to go through that place to get from A to B. You've got one or two press folks in there, and that's where they do the pieces to camera in the Parliament building. And it is our democratic right, British citizens, to go in there and petition your MP. Anybody can do it. Despite Emily Thornberry trying to get me arrested when I did it.
Yes.
Because she didn't answer the question. But we can do that, and you can do it en masse. And if it's peaceful, there's no problem. Sorry, carry on, please, Rodri, and then Dan.
Well, basically, in conclusion, Olly, the Daily Brexit, I think, is a fantastic platform for bringing this issue to a wider audience. Firstly, let's nobble a peer to produce, or an MP to produce a white paper to bring before Parliament to protect our veterans, i.e., they get the same pay grade as the terrorists of Northern Ireland. That in itself is not fair, because you gentlemen are not bloody terrorists. The enemy you were fighting were terrorists, but let's be magnanimous. You deserve an absolute underwriting of any future action.
Yes.
Secondly, we then need to move on to the issue of veterans, of which Matt is a considerable champion and has taken up the baton in no uncertain way, which is what you would expect from his seniority in the Special Air Service. I will say a couple of words about the regiment. It's a regiment that, well, first of all, to be a soldier or a sailor or in the RAF is a target that most of our children should aspire to. To aspire to the Special Air Service is the absolute ultimate. And Matt, mate, hats off, sir. I can't say more about that. But the essence is, all you lads have put your backs in, and you are owed a duty. You've given service. You've been dutiful. We owe it back to you. It's been disregarded by a succession of governments who are liberal. Lo and behold, it's within our hands, Olly, and please take what I'm about to say very seriously. It's within our hands to advertise, raise the funds, and create a private members' bill within the Palace of Westminster. Whether it originates within the House of Lords or the House of Commons, it is within our hands. And using the Daily Brexit as a platform, guess what? Let's put the message out there. But let's nobble our necessary MP, minister, or peer. But let's get it done.
Well, to give you some background on that, we've been doing that now for a long time. I've been fighting this battle now for a while, and I used to stay behind the scenes. I'm an organiser, yeah. We are nobbling them MPs. Johnny Mercer, he's coming out now fighting the corner. He wanted to speak on the 18th, and do you know what? I told him no, through another 2 SAS gentlemen. I said, no, it's not happening.
Why?
We're no longer going cap in hand to any politician. You prove yourself to us, then we will come to you. Yeah, but until that happens, that's not good. You know, it's not good enough. Prove yourself to us. So since then, have any of you seen the debate that went on the 20th in Parliament? Yeah, they're all rallying around now,
Dan,
because they know what's coming. And there, I think it'd be a very good thing for me and Matt to get together.
Tell us about that.
Because later on this year, we're going to release the Veterans Foundation. And what the Veterans Foundation is, yeah, I've put over 300 veterans in employment. I've saved 7 veterans' lives. I've housed 5 veterans this year, right? There's over 2,000 favours been done for veterans, one another. Yeah, there's 80,000 on my groups. But it's not about me. It's not about one man. It's not about a group. It's about us standing united, and that's what the SAS badge stands for. The SAS badge there, and Matt will know this, I'm not SAS, yeah, but it is people from every walk of life, from the military service and all them infantry battalions that have come together as one. Yeah, they've gelled as one and they've worked as one, and that goes for the SBS as well and other agencies that are out there. And I know I'd get a bit vocal and a bit passionate, but it's time that this country stood up for veterans. There's 13,000 veterans sleeping rough on the street. The prison population is accounted for by 20% of veterans. Because yes, you get your resettlement, but the aftercare, and it's not there. You lose that camaraderie. You lose that brotherhood. Well, it's time to give it back. Yeah. And this is where the Veterans Foundation will be done. And every single penny that goes into it, 100% of that will go back to the lads. Not like these other big charity organisations that are run by civvies for the military. Bollocks, you haven't got a clue what we've been through. You don't know how it works. We'll do it ourselves. Fair enough, you've done a fantastic job. I'll take my hat off to you. But paying yourself directors' salaries, and I'm going off tangent now, yeah, is
okay.
Not on. Right? We can make that out of commercial clients that back the Veterans Foundation, and that will be released. Yeah. And it's not, like I said, it's not one man. There's 5 trustees on it, yeah, and then there is a board of directors of 40-odd people being put together as we speak, yeah, and it could even be rolled out in Australia and America as well, and other places. And it's about standing together and standing as one and looking after each other, whether you're from the Army, the Navy, or the RAF, yeah, we are as one. Stand together and prove that we will stand firm. And the 18th was an example of that, and that was commonly known as a show of strength. We're not after kicking the troubles off again. Let bygones be bygones. Let sleeping dogs lie, and give the veterans what's deserved to them, rather than throwing them into a corner. Yeah? The government is spineless. It needs to grow a pair and put them people first. And that's the same with the other emergency services that put their life on the line day in, day out.
Do you know what's absolutely spot on? And by the way, the core backbone of this country is right behind you. It just needs a bit of harnessing.
Come out and support us. Come out and support us. Because the next one we're doing, I'll tell them you all off the top of my head. Yeah, if anyone wants to sing it, we'll just say I've got a good memory. Right? The 7th, Edinburgh. Yeah, Rolling Thunder, Scotland. Yeah, stop the prosecutions of soldiers, A to Z. The 8th, Hull. Justice for Northern Ireland veterans, run by a Million Veterans March. Yeah, Nicola Batty. Stop the prosecution of soldiers, A to Z. Yeah, after that, we're taking over Cardiff Castle. Yeah, I think that is the 18th or the 22nd of June. After that, we've got an RV in Hyde Park on the 29th. Yeah, and then there will be a prominent landmark. We'll go out and we will sleep out until we are addressed. Yeah, and change is made.
Dan?
After that, then, we will have the 27th of September, where Operation Zulu will be released on London from every veteran, foot soldier. The cavalry will be coming on their bikes, the Roll of Thunder. The Navy are coming up the Thames. We are coming out in force. We will come out peacefully. We are organised. We're 100% committed. And if you take one of us out, there's another one to step into their shoes.
Dan,
we want justice for what's right. We want to be left alone. And them elderly veterans there now that are suffering, give them the quality of life that they deserve. Because at the end of the day, everyone in this land sleeps safe in the bed through people like us.
Dan, tell me, please, where can people find details, the protest calendar? Where can people find that? Please give me an address.
You'll find it on any of the veteran groups. Veterans for Veterans is one of my groups. It's on there.
Is that
Veterans
on Facebook?
Against Terrorism is my other group. It's on there. All the leaders are having a meeting on the 15th, and then it will be out there on every group. 1 Million Veterans March, Justice for Northern Ireland Veterans, Rolling Thunder, Stop the Witch Hunt, Minds at War, and the list goes on. UK One Voice, UK Veterans, British Army Be the Best, Special Forces Banter, Boxing Banter, Ops Room Warriors. They're all on there. We're all united. We're all linked, and it will be pushed out there.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to, well, hold on. First of all, Matt, carry on. I want to just, one question I've got is, what is the, I hear about the money side of it so far as the lawyers are concerned and all that. What is the political motivation here? Why are our armed forces being used as some kind of a pawn? Why?
I think it was a negotiation point back in 1998 as part of the Good Friday Agreement, when the likes of Blair, the weak likes of Blair, the man that took us into a couple of different conflicts that maybe wouldn't have been legal. The only person that should really be up on the stand is probably him. And that's not my personal view, but it's the view of many veterans and many of my injured veterans. They absolutely detest Mr. Blair for doing that. But Mr. Blair is the one that actually initiated the 1998 Savile inquiry, and he was the voice to make this happen. And now he sits there on his 300 million a year profit on his little company, going around the world preaching peace. And we've got Soldier F, who's terminally ill, like Dan has said, facing the consequences.
I don't
use that as a brokerage, to get the terrorists on the table, and the terrorists walked away laughing. At the end of the terrorists won that battle, and they're still winning that battle because we're still having veterans dragged into court, and we will do for the next 10 to 15 years.
So what you're telling me, Matt, is that Martin McGuinness shoves a gun outside of a window over this big crowd and shoots into the British soldiers, and he goes and has a state banquet with the Queen at Blair's behest.
Yes.
And yet British soldiers caught up in that turmoil of the time are being prosecuted. That is what it boils down. And you're saying that they are being used, these British soldiers, as a bargaining chip somehow.
We've got the leader of the opposition who stood there and bowed his head at the guys, the terrorists that were killed in incidents that the British Army, initiated the firefight and killed these terrorists in acts of terrorism. And we've got Mr. Corbyn and his gang of merry men.
Don't get me onto him.
Bowing their head at these terrorists. And we wonder why we're in a situation like we are now. The British public are just fed absolute lies. And it's the likes of Dan and the veterans that are really pushing this now and, trying to make it, you're trying to make people see sense. What the truth really is all about, veterans getting used as scapegoats by politicians, and this must stop, otherwise it will just keep going on and on.
To line their own agenda, to give them power, because they say oh, well, we've got that terrorist organisation in talks with us. They're peaceful. No, it's because you're a terrorist-loving scumbag that's an arse kisser. Do one. That's Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah. Terrorist links, another one. Best thing the Labour Party could do is Mr. Corbyn and Sadiq Khan, resign your positions, put somebody else in power that hasn't got them links, and you might just survive.
And, you know, it's beyond me why we still have veteran MPs serving in the Labour Party. You know, I just can't believe they would serve under a leader, you know, who has not renounced his association with terrorist organisations. You know, we are the United Kingdom. You know, we don't stand for terrorism. We never have done, and we never will do. But we still look at MPs, leader of the opposition, that bows his head and supports terrorist organisations. And we have veteran MPs that are supporting that part, supporting that leader and members of that party. They should be stood up and they should be looking at the veterans, what made them their MPs, you know, what give them the nationality. And they should be supporting people like Dan and organisations, you know. However, they're not.
And we've got people like Sadiq Khan, who says that terrorism is now part and parcel of living in a big city. I don't know about you guys, but I was brought up by, well, parents and grandparents that were putting out the fires in London during the Blitz, and was brought up to understand a bit of Blitz spirit and all that sort of stuff. And it's just quite incredible. When I heard Sadiq Khan say that, absolutely disgusted me. I'm going to take a few comments from folks and just get a bit of an idea. But I mean, it's pretty clear that everybody is absolutely behind what you guys are doing, 100%. Alan Edgar says, I'm going to Londonbury from Londonbury to London on the 29th of June. Harley Wilkinson, Dan is more organised than the bloody politicians. I know that's not hard, but Kathy Farrell says, no rants tonight. No, not really, Kathy, not tonight. Amanda Rolfson says, look at this then. Not just our soldiers with the IRA, Dutch soldiers are responsible for the massacre of 300 Muslims at Srebrenica in the 1995 Bosnian War and must pay their families compensation. A court has ruled Bosnia fighting against the terror groups here too. What is going on? Kim Gilson says, brilliant, Dan, well said. Warren Whiteley, can't believe you've not seen it already. I'm not sure what he's referring to there, but he's pointing the finger at me. So, Warren, let me know what that's about. Yvonne Tierney has just got lots of sick buckets next to Blair. Don't forget Pesco, says Suzanne Gamble. And
I mentioned Pesco.
Yeah, please. I mean, how close are we? As an aside, Dan, let me ask you this question, please. I'd like you all to answer this, all three of you. How close are we to losing our military? And it seems to me that is the point at which Brexit, we've lost it. We've lost our country. Once there is this unification of military forces in Europe. How close are we to this inaction of
It's
Pesco?
already happened. Yeah, you've a joint unified militarification there where British soldiers are wearing UN badges on their uniforms. There's been a joint Europe force on Salisbury Plain. Yeah, the government pushed it under your noses without people knowing. There's warships being sold off and admirals being handed over to other European countries for people to work under.
That maneuver,
it's already happened.
That maneuver in Salisbury, I understand that's an annual thing. It just so happened, maybe it was coincidental, that it happened in the UK at the time of the referendum. That we were supposed to be coming out.
We lose the military, we lose the dignity in this country. We've just sacked a captain of a warship for driving a vehicle, a military vehicle for personal use. Yeah. You know, what a stupid, what a waste of money. That man, we've given him so much money and, we've trained him up and we've put him in charge of one of our greatest carriers. Yep. And some bloody politician has sacked him because he's taken a journey that wasn't already authorised. How about, sorry, I won't do it again. full stop, I'll pay the money back and carry on. You know, we've just wasted another load of money. You know, 400 million on the Savile inquiry. How much money do we waste procuring kit, equipment, giving military aid to members around the world? You know, we need to be looking inwards, supporting our military, supporting our veterans, supporting a bloody good government, keeping the dignity, keeping the great in Great Britain. You know, we're losing the battle now. You know, this country will be lost. We won't have a military. We'll have nothing to defend us, and we'll just implode, unfortunately.
Rodders?
It's like that. We're no longer a British army.
Hang on, Dan. Matt, you couldn't have picked a better example. And just to remind you, what the use of that car was for was the school run. This is not taking the bloke up to the West End of London for a night on the piss. This is taking his kids to school whilst he's out at sea. When it comes to use of our military force, you're absolutely bang on.
Yeah.
I
mean, you know, the admiral in charge of the Navy should have told the bloody MPs to piss off and mind his own business. You know,
yes.
the commander himself should have been, yeah, all right, slapped on the wrist. How much did it cost you? 23 quid. Pay it back into the treasury. Carry on. Don't do it again. You know, come on. This country's, you know, we're falling apart when we're sacking, you know, commanders of carriers for taking their kids to school. What a joke.
Absolute nonsense. It's pathetic.
It's like that. To face it, fellas, I would like to say I'm fifth generation military, me. Yeah. My father did 47, 49 years military service. He's been in the Borneo War all the way through his MBE. And I have a son now. Yeah. He's already been doing martial arts for 4 years. Cracking little lad, intelligent. But he will not go into our military. He'll go into the private sector by all means. Yeah, but he will not go into the military. We are no longer an army. Yeah, to be an army, you've got to be over 150,000 men in strength. We're currently 80,000 men, and that includes wireless. Yeah, and what a wireless is people that have left and can be called up for operational tours. Yeah, there are, 4.8 million veterans in the British Army, with the British Army. 4.2 million of them reside in the UK. The other 600,000 have bogged off the pastures greener, and I don't blame them. Yeah, so we're no longer an army. We're a peacekeeping force. We can't be classed as an army because we're only 80,000 in strength.
Dan, do you know what? To sit on one's hands means nothing happens. There is a grassroots, a backbone to Britain that want to see us back to the replenished strength that brings us back to an army. There are a lot of folks who, in actual fact, are outraged. They need a channel in which to direct their energy. And that is our job. That of you, Matt, myself, and a variety of others. But if we don't create the channel, where is that energy going to go? It exists. It's there. There are a lot of very patriotic folks who are serve under Her Majesty. That's where we need to channel it. And my view is, let's get a private member's bill either into the House of Lords or the House of Commons, and let the fucking public, left-wingies, the Ramonas, Remorons, chew on that. I think you'll find there's a mass of electorate who will support us, support you, those who have served in the field. There it is. It's in our hands to make it happen and work. And Matt, Dan, it's great meeting you this evening. Matt, I know, is a stalwart supporter of veterans, having created the Next Step. Let's combine forces. Lo and behold, I think you'll find youngsters will want to join the army. And coming back to an earlier point, where are the armed forces? The depravity is in the lack of folks going into recruitment. Matt, if you remember Colour Sergeant Dave Perfect, whose name we can use, was in army recruitment, and his despondency with the lack of numbers. He's out there trying to recruit people into Her Majesty's forces, and most people go, "Fuck off!
Yeah,
I'm going on the dole. I'm doing this, that, and the other."
Another failure by the British military. You know, we hand over recruitment to Capita, and you know these big companies that haven't got a bloody clue about recruiting military people, and it fails. You know, why are we introducing these great Deloitte's, PwCs, and all these young consultants? You know, 19, 20, 30, I don't know how old they are, coming in telling our military and our commanders what they should be doing. Don't we spend a fortune training these guys, 1 year at Sandhurst, teaching them how to become commanders, another year doing their skill sets? You know, these are young consultants in their own right. You know, they should be running the army. They should be bringing the fresh blood into the military. We should be using civilians. Once we use civilians, we've all seen it, Dan. We bring civilians into the cookhouse. You know, we may think it's small, but that's, you know, the army marches on its stomach. We brought civilians into the cookhouse. It bloody fell apart straight away, you know. Soldiers weren't getting fed enough. You know, we weren't getting enough vitamins. They weren't matching their, you know, they weren't getting the right nutrition. We bring civilians into the administration staff. You know, they don't understand what veterans and the military are all about. And we still keep doing it. We don't learn by our mistakes, you know. It's something we.
And then we bring them into the logistics on the vehicle side as well, and then they're breaking down, and it's just total and utter madness. And the government have got a lot to answer to, and especially with the amount of cutbacks, and retention that they give on the British Armed Forces. I mean, you might be able to back me up here, Matt. Obviously, your lads are away constantly all the time, all over the world and everything, and then the government take away their subsidy for their children to go to school.
That's correct.
Is that not right?
No, that's right.
Yeah, there was an allowance given.
You know,
right?
we used to spend 9 months away each year, you know, and we've done it for about 4 to 5 years in a row, and then we were found out that we weren't allowed continuation allowance for our children to go to boarding school, to give them some sort of normality, you know, some sort of straight education.
Consistency.
And then the government take it away from them. What a load of bollocks.
And what did they save? Probably nothing. They probably didn't save anything. They probably spent it on a new consultant from Deloitte to come in and tell a general what he can and can't do, or something like that, you know, a 30-year-old guy doing military planning. Not a bloody clue. Right, guys, it's time we should all bugger off and go and do our own stuff, I think.
Big cheers to you. Big cheers to you, Matt. I do want to read some of the comments before I wrap up. But Matt, thank you very, very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. For if you want to drop off, you're very, very welcome. And we will do more shows, not just on. Well, I mean, I should have called this show Soldier A to Z, shouldn't I? But apart from that, some of these other issues as well. If you do want to go, I completely understand. But I just want to read some of these comments because there are some great comments from folks. We've had somebody just call in.